everyone, welcome back to Learn Computing with Daniel Bullen. I'm Daniel Bullen, and today we have something special lined up for all of you budding computer scientists out there. We're going to dive deep into an iGCSE computer science theory paper, break it down and make it an absolute breeze for you by going through question by question. But before we get started, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button and a notifications button, and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on tech-tastic content. So let's get into it. So what we're going to be doing in this video is we are going to go through the 2023 past paper for the iGCSE Computer Science for the Edexcel exam board. So I'm going to go through question by question and the type of answers that they want. So the paper one is a theory paper. So let's go. So let's say people use networks in all aspects of their lives. So an office building will have a desktop computer connected to the network. So one reason for networking computers is to enable technicians to maintain them remotely. So that's one reason they've given you. So we need to state two other reasons. So one reason will give you 1 mark. So you could have access to the internet, that would be one of them. Another one you could have would be allow centralized software updates. So just by saying those two, you would get 2 full marks, no question. You could also have access peripherals like printers. You could also have access shared storage. Then you could have provide communication like email, social media, etc. So these are some of the options you could have. Okay. For B, access to that data has to be controlled. So we need to identify one reason that encryption is used. So in a question like this, I would use process of elimination. So we know it's not A, so that's to do with compression, so that's out. We know B, it's not going to be B. Make sure both sender and receiver receive and use the same key. And we know it's not going to be D. So it's going to be C, where encryption will make sure that data is only understood by the intended receiver. Let's try part 2. So file servers are in a small room at the back of the office. So the office has a burglar alarm. So we have to give 2 other ways that servers can be secured using physical methods. So we could have asset logging, that's 1 mark, and we could have CCTV, that's 2, CCTV cameras, that's 2 marks. You could also have security patrol, you could also have swipe, you could have biometrics, or you could have the lock on doors. Nice and simple. Okay. Part 3. Phishing is a type of social engineering. So this question is literally, what is social engineering? So social engineering will exploit and relies on human behaviors with the aim of getting people to reveal sensitive information. And there we have it. Right, see, 5G is a communication standard. So we need to identify a characteristic that is true for the 5G communication standard. So the way I would do it is think about what's not true as process of elimination. Well, we know 5G doesn't have a high transmission latency, so we can cross that out. It's not going to have built-in security, and it's not going to have a bandwidth lower than 3G and 4G. So it's going to be used as wireless communication. So the correct answer would be D. And speaking of which, question 1D, programmers write and test code. They use modular testing. So 1 mark for saying what modular testing is. So modular testing is testing each block of code. That's literally all you would need to say. or you could say testing, or you could say testing each block of code or each sub-program, or you could say testing each function independently as it's written or even finished. That's all you need to say there and no more. Question part E. Computer scientists are viewed as professionals in the same way doctors are viewed as professionals. So give 2 ways that computer scientists can demonstrate professionalism. So there's 7 options in a mark scheme, but we only need 2. One could be have membership in a professional society. That's 1 mark. Another one you could have would be attend computer science related conferences. That's 2 marks. Or we can go simpler, such as behave in ethical ways. Or we can have stay up to date with the changes in the field. Nice and simple. Nice and simple, and now we are moving on. Number 2. Computers manipulate binary patterns and people interpret those patterns. So what we need to do is complete the table by adding a hexadecimal notation for each of the denary values. So what you would do there, convert denary to binary. So it's going to be 4 zeros, then 1, 0, 0, 0. Break that. So break that into 4, which is a nibble, which is just going to be an 8 in hexadecimal. So 8 in denary is 8 in hexadecimal. 12. We know 12 is going to be, break it in binary, it's just going to be 1, 1, 0, 0. Break it into 2 nibbles, 1 nibble being 4 bits. So it's going to be C. So 12 in denary is C in hexadecimal. Nice and simple. Part B. Identify the expression to give the number of unique binary patterns that can be stored in 6 bits. Process of elimination. It's not A, which is 6 to the power of 2. It's not going to be B, because 6 times 2 is 12, not 64. And it's not going to be 6 to the power of 2 minus 1, as that would store 35. So it's going to be 2 to the power of 6. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64. So times 2 6 times to get 64 patterns. And that's why the answer is D. Okay, so C. Binary patterns are manipulated by shifts. So part 1 will be give the result of applying a logical shift by 2 to the binary pattern of 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0. So we want to go right. So the way we would do it is the 2 rightmost zeros will go on the other end. So what you're going to have is you are going to have instead. So instead you are going to have 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, and that'll be it. So that will be our answer by doing a logical shift by right by 2. Okay, so let's get out of that. Okay, part B. Part 2. Give the result of applying an arithmetic if we wanted to shift right by 3 to the binary pattern 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. So let's go in. So that answer is going to be, so let's say we want that answer to be so it's going to be, we're going to move that one So we want to go shift right, so it's going to be 1, 1, 1, and then a 1. And then we want 1, 0, 0, 0. So we have shifted those by 1, 2, 3. So we shifted all of these by 3. And that would get us the 1 mark. Okay? So that will be that. Right, for D. Binary patterns can be interpreted as a signed or unsigned integer. So what we need to do is convert the denary number 60 to binary. So the way we would do that will be, can't edit here, so the way we would do that one would be, so you've got your 8 bits, 0, 0, 0. Wait a minute. So we're gonna have 2 zeros. 128 doesn't go up to 60 and 64 doesn't. So what we're going to have in the third one is we are going to have, so let's just say we will have, so let's say we need to have 60 to binary. So the way we would do it would be 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. Okay? That's going to be a 0, and that's going to be a 0. So we want a 1 there, so 32. And then we want to add 16, that's going to give us 48. And then what we will want to do then is 8, that's 56. Yep, so 1, not 0. So that's 56. Add the 4 is 60, and we can discard those as zeros. So the answer is going to be 60 is going to equal to 0, 1, 1, 1. It's going to be 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is converting 60 into binary. And because it's unsigned, we don't have to worry about it being positive or a negative, okay? Right, let's get on to the next one. So we've got a binary bit pattern for the signed integer in sign and magnitude format. So we got 1001, 0110, so we have to convert that binary pattern to denary. The way I would do sign and magnitude would be 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. So 1, so that's going to give us an indication. So that indication that we're going to get given, it's a 1 under the 128, which is a negative. So we're going to have 16 plus 4 is 20, plus 4 is 20, plus 2 is 22. But because we got the 1, because the 1 is negative, the answer will actually be minus 22, because the sign is a 1, which means it's a negative. Okay? So that is how we would approach an answer like that. Next part, we now have, so now we are negating a signed integer, which means changing its sign without its value. So the negation of plus 16 is minus 16. negation of minus 24 is plus 24. So let's say we've got a binary bit pattern for a signed integer using 2's complement. So we have to convert the binary to its negation using 2's complement format, and that is a 2 marker. So in such a case, so let's say we've got one, so I would do 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. So we got 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. So what we're going to do is, in 2's complement, you would flip the bits and add the 1. So it's going to be a 0. So it's going to be 0, 0, 0, 1. So we are literally flipping the bits except for the last one. So the last one we would need to leave alone. So that is how I would approach a question like that. Write out the positive, flip the bits. But it's not asking us to convert using 2's complement, otherwise I would have done the plus 1. But we're not going to worry about that for the sake of this question. Question 2, part E. We need to construct an expression to convert 13 kilobytes to 13 kibibytes. So, nice, it's a big difference there. So, you would get awarded for doing the following. So, you would get awarded, your award will be reduced. So, when you would do this sort of question, you'll get 1 mark for saying 13 times 1,000, because 1,000, say, bytes is going to be, 1 byte would be like 1,000 kibibytes, which would be 1,024 kilobytes. No, sorry, forget that. So 1,000 for the kibibytes, 1,024 for the kilobytes. Okay? So that's how that would work. So that would be one way you could work. That would be one example you could do. With 1,024, which is a denominator. And the 13 times 1,000, that's the numerator. So that's one example you would do for 2 marks. Or, alternatively, you could have 13 times 1,000, 13,000 divided by 1,024. So that's another way you could do it. Or if you wanted to, you could have 13 times 500 divided by 512. Or you can have 13 times 250 divided by 256, and so on. So those are some of the examples you could have. Any one of those, as long as you get that sort of procedure, as long as it's over 1,024, that will be you will get a mark for that. Okay? Right, let's move on to the next one. Let's move on to question 3. So, software programs carry out tasks on computers. So a head teacher uses a computer simulation model to affect the effect of increasing class sizes. So we need to explain one problem using simulations to predict the effects of changes. So you could have, if the data is incomplete, the answers from the model might not be right. Just by saying that would get you 2 marks. Or you could have something like, if the assumptions the model is based on are inaccurate, that's 1 mark. And then you could add to that, the answers from the model might be incomplete. That would get you another mark. Okay? Now for part B. Part 1. Images are stored as files before being displayed or printed. So let's say we need to give 1 measurement of image resolution. So you can have pixels per inch. That would get, just by saying that would get you 1 mark. You can have dots per inch, that would get you 1 mark, or you could have pixels per centimeter, that would get you 1 mark. So any of those would have got you 1 mark. Okay, part 2. Increase in the color depth of an image leads to an increase in the image file size. So this question is asking us to describe the reason for the increase in file size. So it's 2 marks, so you'll get 1 mark for saying each pixel in the image, and then another mark for saying will require more bits to store. So altogether you could have each pixel in the image will require more bits to store. So that is the only option answer that they give you in that. Okay, next one. Software is divided in categories. Describe one difference between system software and application software. So you get 1 mark for saying what system software is, and 1 mark for saying what application software is. So you have to find both marks for both categories. So for both marks, both categories have to be addressed. You can't just have 2 on system software and 2 on application software. You have to have 1 of each. So you could have something like system software is used to run the operation of the system, whereas application software allows the user to carry out a task. So they will allow clear examples like application software like spreadsheets, presentations, system software such as operating systems. Okay? And then we will now get to the next part. Here is an image of secondary storage. So you've got 2 files, W and Z, are stored on it. So each file is made of several blocks like Z1, Z2, Z3. So what we need to do is complete the image to show the state after running a defragmentation utility. So let's say I got these squares. So the first one, so an example you could have. So all the blocks in each file will be in a numeric sequence, one after the other. So one of the examples to get you 2 marks would be W1, W2, W3, W4. So you got the 4 there, and that's going to be followed by Z1, Z2, Z3. So you could have it on this end, or you could have that on the other end. And it doesn't matter which way you do it, you could potentially have the Z's before the W's. You could do it like that. The Z's before the W's and they can be on this end or they could be on the other end. Doesn't matter. As long as you've got something like this in numerical order, you're still going to get the marks. So all the blank spaces will be together at the front or at the end. So if you have it at the front or at the end, you're going to be fine. So that completes that question. Let's go to E. Here is part of a file that will have electric meter readings. So we need to explain the effect of the file on the file of applying a run length encoding algorithm to this data file. So that's 2 marks. So you'd have 1 mark for saying the file size will not be decreased, and another mark for saying why. So you could say because there are very few repeating patterns, or you could say the file will increase because the run length of 1 would be added to each digit. Or you could say the file size will not be decreased because a run length of 1 would be added to each digit. So any combination of saying what I've just said, like you could say the file size will not be decreased because there are no repeating patterns. That would get you 2 marks straight away. Okay? And now for the next one. A series of tasks is written in a different programming languages. So we have to complete the table to show the correct programming language translated for each task. So let's try a guessing game that can be used in different computing platforms. The translator is going to be an interpreter. A screen driver for a new smartphone, that's an assembler. A new version of the spreadsheet program for the sale next year, that's going to be a compiler. Control software for an embedded system inside a new washing machine, that's also going to be an assembler. So this one requires you to remember the different types of translators out of interpreters, compilers, and assemblers. And that's part F. Question 4. Another process of elimination. Data packets travel across networks from one device to another. So we need to identify the measurement of network speeds. Megabits per second, megabytes per second, megabits per second, or megabytes per second. So we got to think data packets are traveling across the network from one device to another. So we know megabits isn't correct. That's a measure of storage capacity. Megabytes, it's not, because that's also a measure of storage capacity. D is going to be incorrect, because transmission speeds are measured only in bits per second, not bytes per second. So the correct answer is going to be megabits per second. Part B. Data packets contain addresses at the sender and the receiver. So we need to complete the table to give the number of bits that make up each type of network address. So we've got an IP version 4 address and we've got an IP version 6 address. So we need to give the number of bits. So in the IP version 4, it's 32. IP version 6 is 128. Unless you know that off by heart, you're going to lose marks. So IP version 4 is 32 bits, IP version 6 is 128 bits. Right, next part. Data packets travel over physical media. We need to describe one difference between the media used by a wired network and a wireless network. So we only want one difference. So you could say, in a wired network, packets travel over copper cables, whereas in a wireless network, packets travel over the air. There's not much more you could say to that. They will allow radio signals, infrared, microwave for air, but it has to be more than just waves. So if you say just waves, they're not going to allow it. And they will also allow twisted pair or cat for copper. They'll allow electrical or light signals. If you just say electricity, they're not going to allow it. So in this answer, you could say something like, in a wired network, packets travel over fiber optic cables, whereas in a wireless network, packets travel over the air. And there's nothing much more we need to say to that one. Right, part 2. Some people confuse Ethernet with Wi-Fi. So describe what is an Ethernet. So an Ethernet is a protocol. That's one mark, which is used on a wired network. So you could say an Ethernet is a protocol used on a wired network. Or you could say Ethernet is a protocol that defines how packets are checked for errors. Or you could say Ethernet is a protocol that operates at the link layer of the TCP/IP stack. But if I was doing it, I would say Ethernet is a protocol used on a wired network and just leave it at that. Because by saying something as simple as that would still get you marks. Okay, let's press on. Single physical box connects a desktop computer to the internet. So the box incorporates 3 different components. So we need to complete the diagram to show the names of the components in the correct order. So we got a computer and we got the internet. What connects computers together? Switch. So you would write, so switch would go in the top one. Right, let's say you've got two switches. How do they connect? Go to the middle, router. And let's say we've got two routers. You're going to get a modem. So you've got a modem there. So you've got switch, router, modem. Done. 3 marks. So they will allow 3 marks for all of the switch, router, and modem in the correct order. If you do it in any order, they will award you 2 marks maximum for all switch, router, and modem in any order. Or if you were to say switch or router or modem in any box, maximum you'll get is 1 mark. So it's important that you say switch, router, modem, which will go to the internet. E. So users enter password when logging onto a network and when creating accounts using a web page. So you need to describe one difference between validation and authentication. So you're basically saying what they are. So you can say validation is used to check that the password entered by the user is fit for processing, whereas authentication is used to verify the identity of a user. That would get you 2 marks. Or you could say validation is used to check that the password entered by a user meets specified requirements, whereas authentication is used to prove that users are who they say they are. That would get you 2 marks straight away. Okay. Let's press on, shall we? Okay. So we got hardware devices execute programs to carry out a variety of tasks. A program controls a B character in an animation. So the B can turn to face north, east, south, west, or never eat shredded wheat. So anyway, the B can move any number of steps in the direction it's facing. So we have to complete the table to show 1 input and 1 output required to move the B. So we've got our input, process, and output. So the process is we're calculating the path of the B will move along its new position. So this question is worth 2 marks. So you could have, in input, you could either have enter the direction of the B will face, or you could have enter the number of steps that the B will move. If you mention one of those, you'll get 1 mark. Output, you'll have 3 options. You could say the B appears in its new position, or you could say the B flies in its new position, or you could say the B faces its new direction. If I was doing this, I would say for input, enter the direction the B will face, and as the output, the B will face its new direction. Done. Simple. Shall we press on? B. Computers are made up of hardware components. We need to complete the diagram by adding directional arrows between the components to show the flow of communication. So, the way we would do that, so the way I would do it, we would need to align between the mouse and the CPU. So we would draw an arrow that looks like this. That's the first one. And then we would need to do a line between the CPU and the speaker, but the arrow at the speaker end only. So we grab and we draw that to here. And then after that, we would need to do a line between the CPU and the USB device, which you are going to find on both ends, like this. And that is how you would draw out the CPU with the USB device. So doing something like that would get you 3 full marks. Okay? Right, let's move on. Okay, so in this one, we need to identify what is stored in ROM. Process of elimination. It's not a firewall. It's not A, because a firewall is an application that's loaded after the device is booted. It's not C, because the operating system is loaded after when the device is booted. And it's not D, because the user interface is loaded after when the device is booted. So what are we left with? Basic input-output system, or BIOS for short. Nothing more I need to say there. Right, next one. Cache is used as temporary storage. One type of cache is located between the main memory and the CPU. So we need to explain one reason cache is used in a computer. So you get 2 marks for saying any of them, for any of the following. So you can have cache makes up for the difference in speed of 2 devices because it's very high speed memory. That would get an answer like that would get you 2 marks. Another answer that would get you 2 marks would be cache is high speed memory which acts as a buffer between a faster and a slower device. That's 2 marks. Or you could say it speeds up processing because commonly used instructions and data are stored nearer to the CPU. Or you could say it speeds up processing commonly used because the CPU doesn't have to wait while data is fetched from the RAM. But if I was doing this, I would say cache makes up for the difference in speed of 2 devices because it is very high speed memory. Saying something as simple as that will get you 2 marks. Nice and simple. Shall we press on? Right. A washing machine uses several different embedded systems. One embedded system uses a switch to identify the type of wash cycle selected by the user. So we need to describe one other example of an embedded system found in a washing machine. We use them every day. Unless you're watching, instead of doing the washing that your parents told you to do, you will know that it uses a motor to rotate the drum. Or if you haven't seen your washing machine ever because you're too busy on FIFA or Fortnite or whatever it is you like to do these days, a washing machine will use a sensor to check the water level is in the machine. Or if, say, your parents are on an errand and you're thinking, nah, I just want to play FIFA or Fortnite all day. Well, they will ask you to check to see how long it takes for the washing machine to get done. And you can do that by using a timer to control the time required for the wash cycle. Or, if you don't want your clothes to be still too wet, you can use a thermometer to check the water temperature. So any of those would get you 2 marks. If I was doing this, I would say something as simple as use a motor to rotate the drum. Because you see it rotating all the time when you put your clothes in, so that way, when they're dry, oh, they smell so nice, don't they? But hey, let's press on rather than worry about wash light, shall we? Okay. So programs use logic statements to control physical hardware. A window shuts when the temperature is too cool or it is a rainy night. The values are defined as A shows it's nighttime, B shows it's too cool, C shows it's raining. So we need to complete the truth table to show the results of each operation. So 2 rows are done for you. So 0, 0, 0 is 0, 0. 1, 1, 1, all ones. So we got to do the rest. So if you remember from logic gates, right, we got A and C is just going to be a 0. So what I am going to do is show you what I mean. So in here, we're just going to have a 0. Then A and C or B, that's still a 0. Right, next one. A and C, that's still going to be a 0. A and C or B, that's going to be a 1. Zero, 1, 1. That's going to give you a 0. And this one's going to give you a 1. 1, 0, 0. So A and C, it's still going to be, this one is going to be a 0. And A and C or B is going to be 0. 1, 0, 1. So A and C, if they're both a 1, it's a 1. For this one, A and C or B, it's a 1. We've got 1, 1, 0. A and C, that's going to be a 0. A and C or B is going to be a 1. So that will get you 3 marks just for knowing where the 0s and where the 1s go. So this is a sort of question that exam boards have to ask. Boolean and mathematical concepts. So this is a sort of question that they got to ask. And if you can get the procedural mastery of a question like that, you're going to be laughing your way in and out of the exam hall. And with the theory like we're going through, what you're going to realise is just copy and paste the mark scheme. Remember that, you're going to be laughing. Right, shall we press on? Okay, we got a new one now. 5D2. So a warehouse has an automated alarm system. So when the alarm system is activated, it will sound if a movement sensor is activated or a pressure pad is activated. So a key code to deactivate the alarm has not been entered yet. So we need a logic statement. So we need a logic statement using and, or, and, not with the letters M, P, and C to show the conditions of the sound alarm. So we have to use all of these, otherwise we won't get the full marks. So by saying M or P, that would get you 1 mark. And not C. That would get you 2 marks. Okay? So just by mentioning and, that would get you 1 mark. By mentioning not C, that would get you 1 mark. M or P, that would get you 1 mark. But it doesn't have to be written exactly like that. You can, however, write it like this. M or P in brackets and not C outside brackets. Or you could have M and not C, or P and not C. Or you could have M and not C, or P and not C. So any of these ways will get you 3 marks. So it doesn't matter which way one of those you do, as long as you've got the M or P, you've got the and statement, and you've got the not C. So if you've got any of those, doesn't matter what order, you're still going to get the full 3 marks. So don't fret if you don't write it in exactly that order. Okay? So that is part 2. Right, E. So a computer with a single CPU runs several processes at the same time. This computer is what is said to be multitasking. So this question is asking you, describe how the operating system enables the processes to share one CPU. So it's 2 marks, and you're going to have 5 options. You could have the operating system uses a scheduler to control processes. That's 1. And the operating system holds processes in a queue. That's 2 marks. You could also have some processes may be given higher priorities than others. Each process gains accesses to the CPU for a short time or for a time slice to execute. Or you can have processes are swapped to and from the queue and the CPU. If I was doing this, I would say the operating system uses a scheduler to control the processes, and the operating system will hold these processes in a queue. That is what I would say for that question. And then we are on question 6. Programmers share algorithms with different people and write algorithms for different reasons. So a programmer is showing a new algorithm to a group of non-technical managers. So we have to state an appropriate method for writing an algorithm. So you'll get 1 mark for the method, 1 mark to justify the answer. So you can have flow just by saying flowchart or just saying pseudocode, that will get you 1 mark. If I was doing this, I would say flowchart as it's a visual representation. Done. Easy 2 marks. Or you could also have it does not rely on understanding of specific syntax, or you could say overview without unnecessary detail. For those who prefer pseudocode, I like to meet the people who prefer it. Justification you could have would be it doesn't rely on understanding specific syntax, or it uses English language words. But you can only have 1 justification. So 1 mark for the method, 1 mark for the justification. If I was doing this, I would say flowchart as it's a visual representation that does not rely on the use of English language. Job done. Right, into pseudocode. So, figure 1 shows an algorithm that displays a string based on the number input by the user. So we're asking the user to input a number. That's being received. And if it's 1 or if it's 2, then I'm going to go, if it's 1, it's going to say first. Otherwise, I can say, if it's 2, then we say second. And then else, invalid input. So, in that pseudocode, we need to give 1 reason why the selection statement on line 7. So this is our line 7. So it's basically saying, why is it not required? So you can either say, the test on line 3 has already been limited to the values 1 and 2. Or you could say the only value left for in num to be on line 7 is 2. I would say 2 is the only value left for in num on line 7. That's literally it. There's nothing more you could say to that. Okay, we've got figure 2, shows an algorithm that manipulates arrays. So we've got 2 arrays and we set the array. And then we're using a for loop within that uses that array. So it's 2 marks for describing what happens to the variable old index when line 5 is executed. So the old index value will go from highest to lowest, where the step value is decremented by 1. That is an answer you need to get 2 marks. And there's no other options. You can have alternative options there. Okay. Part 2, we need to state the purpose of the algorithm in figure 2. So why does it exist? So, the purpose of this algorithm, you could have one of the 2. It reverses the scores, or reverses the array of scores, or you could have copy the old score into new scores in reverse order. Nice and simple. Then we're on D. Cloud storage has become an increasingly popular service. So this one is an essay one. So this is where we need to discuss the benefits and the drawbacks of using cloud storage. So in a question like this, we would need to provide some context, like the growth of cloud storage, benefits of cloud storage, drawbacks of cloud storage, and a conclusion. And that's going to get us 6 marks. So, the way they assess this, if you got nothing, then it's obviously a 0. If you produce something basic, independent points, showing elements of knowledge and understanding of key concepts, with basic information and little linkage between the points made, the maximum you're going to get is 2 marks. If you have adequate knowledge and understanding of the key principles of computer science, with some linkages and lines of reasoning with some structure, you're not going to get any more than 4 marks. To get the full Monty, you need a comprehensive knowledge and understanding by selecting relevant knowledge and understanding of key concepts of computer science to support the discussion being presented. And the discussion will have to be well developed with a sustained line of reasoning which is clear, coherent, and logically structured. So that looks like a tall order when you look at it at first. So, you could talk about something like cloud storage has a higher bandwidth available on both wired and wireless networks. And with the advent of cloud storage, it has reduced costs of large capacity storage devices, and it also has improved authentication. And with the growth of cloud storage is because of the increased trust in service providers and the growth of service provider options. So there's lots of different service providers of cloud services like Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, to name 2 examples. And increased business models that aid scalability regarding the storage capacity and the costs. So this leads us to benefits such as you can share documents and setting of access permissions. So I can do that with my students in tutoring. Share files to them without having an email. You can get access. I can access it from any location around the world. That's connected to a wide area network. And another benefit is reduced cost of local computing devices with less storage required. And you've got the built-in backups of data on the servers. But the problems are, and this is why some documents you should keep offline, like your private stuff, like your bank statements and all that stuff. Increased security risks incurred from outsourcing any service. If you don't have a network, you can't use the cloud service. So if you've got no internet connection, you can't use the service. And there's an increased, with the reliance on service providers continuing at a high level of service, what can happen is a service provider could just all of a sudden liquidate. And you're basically almost out of luck. And there is an increased chance of external data breaches because people who hack into the service provider might be able to hack into your account. And we have to identify responsibilities for data breaches, legal jurisdiction, as the servers will be located outside the country in which you're in when you make the document. So say I'm in the UK and the server's out in the States. Which legal jurisdiction do we follow? And then increased power consumption from server systems. So it's going to take a lot of power. And you would need the cooling systems. If it overheats, then things are going to fall apart. And with the increased use of network and network traffic, that's going to have an impact on other network users. So the more network traffic, the more people on it at one time, the slower the service is going to be because there's more people. So, in conclusion, I would say something like cloud storage overall, I believe, can be a really, really good tool for business or for collaboration, for anything. But we have to be careful and be discreet on how much we use it and what we use the cloud storage for. So that is the sort of thing that I would say if I was doing this, if I was answering such a question like that. And let's check to see if there's any more questions after this, which there isn't, which takes us to, I believe that takes us to the end of the paper. And yes, it does take us to the end of the paper. So that's the end of the paper. So I have walked through with you the iGCSE 2023 past paper. So there you have it, comprehensive walkthrough of the iGCSE Computer Science 2023 theory paper. Remember, practice makes perfect, so grab some past papers, give it a go. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to hit that like button and share it with your fellow coders, fellow computer science students. Subscribe for more content like this. And as always, happy coding, happy revision, and best of luck with your studies. Bye. So please be sure to hit that like, and please also remember to hit that subscribe button. And another way to subscribe is to just click on this link, which is below each video I place. And if you like my content and you want to find out more about what I do, I've also got an online course called Introduction to Computer Systems on the Udemy website. So you just need to click on it. And there we go. So this is my online course, Introduction to Computer Systems. So this is the landing page for that course. So in it, you will learn. So these are some of the things we'll learn, like explaining the role of the central processing unit, describe the components of the CPU, provide an introduction to assembly language, which is low-level programming, explain the factors that affect the performance of the central processing unit, and I've also put in another bit that I'm interested in, the physics of overclocking the CPU, which made me develop an interest in electronics and also physics. So there's a lot more to it than even we realized. So this is the course content. So you've got computer systems, so I'm introducing you to it. Then I'm going into the different forms of architecture and assembly language. Then I'm going into the factors that affect it and the physics of overclocking the CPU. And then I'm going into logic, so combinational logic systems, making the logic gates, sequential logic systems, semiconductors. Then I go into all things binary, where we introduce you to number systems, all the way down to doing binary and sound, images and text. And then finally we got input and output devices and the different forms of storage, so that's where memory will come in. And then my assessment is basically one big quiz of 30 questions. So you don't need any knowledge to do this course. All you need is a computer with stable internet connection. So that's all you really need there. And why you should do the course? Well, wherever I don't know, I'll go out and learn it. So the way my brain is wired is I'm on the autism spectrum. So it will be an asset in helping you get through the online courses that we provide. So we understand how to explain things in simple terms due to my teaching background. So you could think of us as a real-life version of, say, a Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory, minus the rudeness, or a C-3PO, but without the glitches. So I'm on the autism spectrum, so we're on the autism spectrum and have a rough idea on how to talk to them and relate to them. And my teaching style is that style I've crafted, and one that works in a way that some people don't get if they only had tuition in the classroom or just want to study the subject a lot more. So this course provides you with the opportunity to go further than you would in the subject that you want to pursue. So those are some of the reasons why you should consider buying this online course, because once you buy it, it's yours for a lifetime. For some of my videos, I will go through programming tasks. So if you want to do these yourself, I have put a Replit link below on my programming videos. So you just click on REPL, and this is what you need if you haven't signed up at all. So you just click sign up. If you've got an account, you just click login, and once you've logged in or signed up, this is the page that will appear. So if I was to log in right now, this is the page, so this will appear. So that will be the page there. And in addition to all that, I am also a private tutor where I offer my private tutoring services specialising in ICT and computer science. And I look forward for you coming to me for lessons. Goodbye for now.